What is legal that you think should be illegal? That in more than half of the states in the US, if a woman is raped, gets pregnant, and decides to keep the baby, the rapist then can get custody and visitation rights. And the corollary: forcing male victims of rape to pay child support to their rapist. This too is ducked up. Lawmakers exempting themselves from the laws they make. Oh man. As a South African, this is a big problem here. Aftermarket headlights that are so bright that you can see into next week, blinding every other driver on the road. I have good dark vision and these things blind you. If I can see my car's shadow in front of me, where my lights are, actually where I live, they are illegal, but it isn't enforced. Child beauty pageants. That sheet is just plain sinister. I think Europe already banned it. The parents of these children are crazy to hypersexualize their own child like that. In the UK at least it's still alive and well. My mate's MRS is pushing all 3 kids through them every weekend. I refuse to go along and show support, it's just too weird to see an 8-year-old slapped up. Releasing the pictures details of people accused of crimes before they are convicted. Lives are ruined by police mistakes, false charges. Well, Reddit did this once. We did it. Reddit. Private prisons. This was a bullshit idea. Justice and incarceration should not be a business. The whole idea of keeping government from running things has a major downside in the US. Companies and lobbyists running government way too much of the time. Leaving the goddamn shopping cart in a ducking parking space. In Finland we have a solution to this. The carts are connected with chains to each other and you need to insert a coin into the cart to detach the chain. You get the coin back when you connect the chain to the cart. Usually this works because people want their coin back. Sirens. Horns or other traffic sounds being in songs or commercials on the radio. My dad was a US Marine. They played a missile sound effect on the radio once and it got him in a car crash. Insulin costing $300. Colorado is trying to help with this. Colorado insulin bill will put a cap of $100 per month cap on insulin co-payments starting next year. Not perfect, but it's going to help a lot of people. Drug companies advertising directly to consumers. This seems to be a very us thing, by which I mean those ads that list every possible health effect in medical science. Pretty sure in the UK it is illegal to do this. Though there are some exceptions, typical over-counter stuff like Nurofen. It's illegal in the majority of countries. I believe it's only legal in the US and Papua New Guinea. Facial recognition by private companies. Facial recognition by governments should also be illegal. Facial recognition? They are moving into wireless heartbeat signature recognition now. I didn't even know that was a thing. But apparently it is. Not vaccinating your children. Like many European countries are starting to outlaw this. Bankers bankrupting their banks and getting bailed out by taxpayers instead of having to face the consequences like every other individual would have too. Basically they have a free card. If they duck up, it's no problem because we will bail them out. If not, they are happy and keep the billions they made to buy a fancy yacht. Duck those people. For-profit ambulance companies. Is that an American thing? Like how they have ambulance chasing lawyers? It's just for-profits all the way down. Politicians and political parties taking large donations from companies. Wealthy businessmen. Lobby groups etc. Donations should all be made through as registered government department and be strictly limited to $1,000 per individual per year. With the political party only receiving the money without any indication of who made it. I was just thinking about that this morning. And how ludicrous it is. You can't bribe. But you can donate the same amount of money to a re-election or whatever. For politicians to lie. I know this is practically impossible to adjudicate, but if a poly is caught having misled people for private gains, examples in Australia are rife. From one nation pushing firearm legislation to Barnaby Joyce's Watergate. They should be fined to the goddamn gills and removed from politics for the rest of their lives. There are few things more damaging to society than corrupt politicians. I can't understand how the norm is that these politicians and media experts don't suffer any consequences. Here in the US, all the liars and scumbags that did things like push the Iraq War, claiming WMDs, are still regular pundits appearing on shows and handing out their sage advice. Like there isn't the blood of tens of thousands of innocent lives on their hands. And if anyone is wondering, the guy that's in my mind right now is Bill Kristol, who I believe was just on MSNBC and was, you guessed it, pushing another war. He's one example of hundreds of media figures and politicians who get away with this regularly though. Towing cars needs to be far more regulated. Look up the laws in your state. It generally is very regulated and scummy tow truck operators will intentionally violate the law. One example. In NY, a tow truck operator needs signed written permission from the property owner with the license plate of the vehicle to be removed before they are allowed to tow a vehicle. Child marriages. Only 2 states have laws that state you have to be 18. Other states have laws where you only need one, or both depending on state, parents' permission to marry at any age. Then it is nearly impossible to get a divorce until they are 18 because they are minors. Which is just ironic. Employees should have zero say over what you do off the clock. Or anything that doesn't affect the job. As it is now they can fire you for any stupid reason. Kicking people off of health insurance because they get diagnosed with something like a tumor or ADHD because it's a pre-existing condition. What the hell is health insurance for if you can't treat conditions like that? Forcing workers to go into their shifts if they're physically mentally too sick to come in. Especially when they do everything in their power to find coverage. About 3 weeks ago I could barely leave my bed because I felt like I would pass out. I didn't have a voice. Constantly coughing and I couldn't eat anything without vomiting. I work at a small escape room place. I told the owner that I wouldn't be able to come in the next day. He told me to find someone to cover. I messaged all of the available employees I know along with asking in the group chat we have if someone could cover. Nobody could and I ended up working about 20 hours the next 3 days until I was finally sent home. He then proceeded to put in the group chat that it wasn't his responsibility to get our shifts covered and if we couldn't get the shifts covered then we had to come in. Paparazzi being able to take photos of celebrities' kids. The kids have not signed up for anything. With that stated. To go along with that law. Celebrities not being able to do magazine spreads or post photos of their children online under 16 without their consent. Edit. Kids because some dumbasses can't read. Edit 2. People. Bet all Americans cannot seem to read the title of the post either. Airlines overbooking. I get that there are no shows and that can cost the airline business. But something about it seems so sleazy to me. Apparently Virginia Tech has taken up the practice too. This year they admitted 1,000 more students than they had the dorm space for. And tried to offer deferred admission in exchange for paying for tuition, but a lot of students rightfully earned their admission and aren't willing to wait a couple years to go to college. So now the university is being forced to pay to put them up in hotels for a full year. Companies exaggerating the features of their products, that is, a cleaning agent that instantly turns your dirty tiles perfectly white. Or only telling the peak numbers, car does XX miles per gallon in super controlled environment. Or making the product look better than it does in real life, frozen food for example. Any kind of thing like this is false advertisement in my mind and should be illegal. Befouling a public or shared toilet. I share an office with other professionals. Yet half the time the toilets look like they were visited by Bigfoot in a hurry after 3-day-old tacos. People repeating AskReddit questions too much. Child beauty pageants. The exploitation and sexualization of children is wrong and there is no justifying it. Really should be looked at as abuse. To the parents who think they should do this to their children, get some help. Here in Brazil, public school teachers are not allowed to hold back students who did not achieve minimum grades. That way, Our education stats look good to the foreign organizations, and at the same time we have high school graduates who can barely write a coherent sentence or do basic math. This should be abolished. Theft by cop. Better known as civil asset forfeiture. Cops can pull you over in the US. Say I think you've received this $500 or more. People have lost up to tens of thousands, or will use it for some kind of crime. So I'm gonna take it. They don't have to charge you with a crime. They don't have to arrest you. They can just take any value of money and then you must prove you are not going to use it in a crime. That is the antithesis of what the justice system and police should be about. I think it's crazy many apps are allowed access to your phone. Especially in files it doesn't need to operate effectively. I also believe tracking cookies in web browsers should be illegal. It doesn't make sense to me that a sitting president in the US can apparently not be charged with a crime while still president. Allowing children in a movie theater after 9 PM. I would like to watch the new Disney movie without little Timmy talking through it. Or his itch of a mother giving him a phone with the brightness all the way up so he can watch Peppa Pig without headphones. Doxing. In the modern age people put so much of themselves online. And sites are storing so much of our data that when we put just a little bit of ourselves online, that little bit of us is pretty much impossible to get off the internet. Usually this is no issue, as one would have to search for quite a while to find this information. But when someone is actively taking means to publish this information for everybody to easily find, that is out of your control and shouldn't be allowed. Advocating games that will most likely give some people gambling addictions as a kid's game. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday about wealthy families in Chicago granting guardianship of their children to relatives to qualify for financial aid that is reserved for people living in poverty. Solitary confinement. Inhumane and hasn't shown to reduce crime at all. Just further isolates prisoners, making them more angry, depressed, which can cause recidivism. I spent entering into an agreement with my complex to prevent any of their competitors from offering services. Shouldn't that already be illegal due to monopoly over the building? There's probably some BS like you can just use mobile data instead. So there's no monopoly. Taking and releasing pictures of dead people, especially children, in the news before telling their families first. Trust me. Finding out your family is dead from the news before the police tells you in person is horrific. I know from experience. Fine print and overtly fancy word usage to confuse people. Every document should be big enough to read and coherent enough for the person with an average education to understand. People getting driver's licenses and never having to prove their driving ability again. I believe that there should be at the very least a practical test every 10 years to show that you can still in fact drive proficiently. So assholes in minivans don't brake super hard in front of me and make me wreck my motorcycle. Bad parking. Payday loans. At least W the mob, you get to meet some colorful characters. Pharmaceutical commercials. Lawyer commercials. Private prisons. Bullfighting. Or generally things that results in poor treatment of animals and or captivity of animals for show. The hours that some doctors work are ridiculous. Putting people's lives in the hands of sleep-deprived doctors should be illegal. Publishing someone's name in the newspaper online before their trial, even if they are found not guilty, that sheet will ruin their life.